Racing in many ways is a family sport. Whether you look at families of fans or families of drivers, the sport has lent itself well to family traditions. But good families and good family traditions aren't the only ones that racing has seen. This is where Don and Bill Whittington really fit into. Both being born in the late 1940s from Lubbock, Texas, the brothers were from a set of three, Don being the eldest by 3 years over Bill. While not much in particular is known really about the Whittingtons' early life, it's relatively widely known that the two, as well as their later younger brother Dale Whittington, were major thrill seekers. This extended to their first passion, this being the art of airplane racing. They pushed into this field when they were in their early 20s during the early 1970s. In this time as well, they involved themselves in the Confederate Air Force, which was a non-profit organization based in Dallas, Texas, that was meant to preserve and show historical aircrafts at air shows throughout the United States and Canada. They worked on restoring aircraft for years along with racing separate aircraft through the mid-70s, one of which the brothers had was a modified P-51D setting a qualifying record of 438 miles per hour. This was spearheaded in interest by Don, but his younger brother Bill was the one who pushed them towards the racing sphere. Both Bill and Don decided to make this jump in the late 1970s, around 1977 and 78. At this point, they owned their own plane company, and with it, Don had piloting skills, and the family itself had a good set of income coming in that could really fund their operations. In 1978, they drove a Porsche 935 77A in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But even though Don and Bill got this great opportunity, it wouldn't last long as they only competed in 41 of the event's 370 laps after a crash. But this didn't deter their return in 1979, driving for the Kramer Racing team. But it wasn't cheap for them to do this. In order to race, both Don and Bill had to pay $20,000 apiece to get a ride on this team. All things seemed set, as they were set to race the Kramer Porsche 935 K3. But they were hung up on one tiny detail: the order of the driver lineup. They wanted to go first. With this, the owner pushed hard on them to have them go behind professional driver Klaus Ludwig. Ludwig had much more experience and was clearly the best driver of the team, but the Whittington brothers persisted on. Finally, after being worn down, Kramer gave them an opportunity, although it was unknowingly to him. They had said that if Ludwig had crashed, then they would have wasted 40 grand, so they would do anything to be the first out. And Kramer jokingly said that they needed to buy the car and the team in turn. Thinking he'd finally gotten them off his back, you could probably guess the shock that he had when they went to their trailer and had him take $200,000, not a penny more, out in cash. The car was already for sale, but at the same time, how many people have over 200 grand in cash just laying in bags in their trailers for races? People knew that they were rich, but even that was odd. But even so, nobody really went in to find out why, and the Whittingtons got their wish of being the first drivers out. This would prove to actually work out for them, as the brothers weren't great, but they were serviceable, offering Ludwig the ability to get just enough from the car so that the team would actually win the 1979 24 Hours of Le Mans. The key as well was in the car's innovation to weather. Heavy rains had rolled in for the event, and because this was one of the few cars with windshield wipers, it gave them a massive advantage on the competition. So these upstart brothers would go down as some of the most prestigious winners in racing history. This race was also important as their win was the first production car win in this race since 1953. Now, it also was around this time, 1978 actually, that the brothers had bought up the track Road Atlanta. This would offer them more income, as in the time that they owned it and their family owned the track from 78 until its 1993 bankruptcy, they still managed to bring in everyone from sports car racing to NASCAR racing at the track. As the 70s transitioned into the 80s, Don and Bill continued to expand their racing empire. While they continued to race in the sports car racing scene, they also expanded to open wheel and stock car racing. Don and Bill both explored NASCAR Winston Cup racing in 1981, Don in 7 races, Bill in 2. While they continued to race in the sports car racing scene, they also expanded to open wheel and stock car racing. Don and Bill both exploring NASCAR Winston Cup Series racing in 1980. Don in 7 races, Bill in 2. In their first race in 1980, the brothers actually showed up and competed at a relatively high level. Out of the 37 cars that showed up to the season opener at Riverside, Bill came home in 8th and Don ran 9th, both driving for the famous Die racing team. While Bill only ran 2 races that year, Don had a much longer NASCAR career. Racing in 1980 and 81 and trying to make races in 82, he would overall make 10 starts. On the sports car side, they still made waves as they nearly set a new qualifying record at the Daytona International Speedway with a blistering pace. And it was later found that they actually implanted a nitrous bottle into their car to make this happen. While most teams at the time were using one engine or as few as possible, the Whittingtons seemed to use them like they were going out of style. And with each costing around 40 grand, it was eye-opening as it showed just how rich they were compared to everyone else and how carefree they were that they were only just blow-up engines on qualifying runs. The last major on-track racing news or accomplishments of any kind that they would have was their attempts at the Indy 500. Don and Bill doing a majority of the Indy 500 racing for the family in the first half of the 1980. Now, the 1982 race is one that's actually really interesting because Don, Bill, and their younger brother Dale became the first trio of brothers ever to qualify for the Indy 500. And while the elder brothers had more experience, it was showing that Dale did not. While Don got a 6th place and Bill got 16th in the race, Dale, on the other hand, got caught up in a pre-race crash with Kevin Cogan, where Cogan struck AJ Foyt and Mario Andretti. Dale was behind it, and due to his inexperience, he locked up the brakes and spun right into Roger Mears' car 2 rows ahead of him. Dale would never again be able to strap into a race car and compete at Indy, having actually never competed in a lap at the track as he crashed before the race even started. Now, while the early 80s looked good for the family, 1986 was the beginning of the end. In 1986, federal authorities indicted Bill and Don on money laundering, tax evasion, and drug smuggling charges. Suddenly, the oddities of their racing career and funding became much more clear. The Whittingtons were operating one of the largest marijuana smuggling operations in America and were rumored to even be smuggling cocaine at that. Using their fast boats and multiple airplanes, with them owning Road Atlanta, they would use the planes from their company to smuggle weed into and around the racetrack. As the track had a really long straightaway, they were able around midnight and later in the night to land their planes on the track, load up the drugs that they were illegally smuggling, and then pilot it to different airports where they were basically all in cahoots to do this. They would usually have 2 planes, where one would go to a different airport to cover for why they were taking off, while the other would go to the racetrack as well. Now, to cover for operations like this in their racing, Bill and Don would actually make up fake sponsors so people wouldn't ask where they got their funding from. It would look like a real racing operation. One story that they had was that they would hire attractive women to go around and give free samples of their new perfume brand. The only issue was that their perfume self-sponsorship was other brands that they would remove labels from and then put their own fake ones on for. Ultimately, Don and Bill would plead guilty to their charges, Bill getting 15 years charged in federal prison for tax evasion and conspiracy charges, while Don got 18 months for money laundering and the connections he had to the operations. As was part of the plea deal, they made a $7 million restitution payment to the government. This included selling many of their cars, including their 1979 Le Mans winner. Don would be paroled in 1988, and Bill was actually released in 1990. Now, you might be wondering what happened to Dale, their younger brother. Well, he was actually found to be completely out of the loop on all of it. At least that's what was said, and he was not charged whatsoever. So he continued an on-again, off-again racing career until he passed away in 2000 of a drug overdose. For the most part, the other two stayed out of most of the spotlight, except when they tried to get their '79 Le Mans winning car back. See, at the time, it had been donated to the Indy Racing Museum. Bill and Don had sued the museum for the car, but after a 10-year legal battle, the museum kept the car on the grounds that it was given as a donation. So the brothers went back to their plane company, and in 2021, Bill Whittington passed away at the age of 71 as he had crashed the plane he was piloting in the Arizona desert. To this day, older brother Don is the last of the Whittington brothers. He still lives on, still running the plane company, and for the most part, staying anonymous. And with that, I pass the story on to you. Did you know about the Whittington brothers and all of the different escapades they had? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more great NASCAR and racing content in general. And thank you to all my channel members for your continued support. So until next time, have a good one.